Standing in the doorway, I watched in disbelief as Harold and Liam barged in with bags in tow, their voices ringing with unearned authority. "We're here to stay, and don't expect us to lift a finger," Harold announced, as if our home was his kingdom. I was in the middle of sketching a new design when the sound of a car pulling up broke my concentration. Peering out the window, I expected to see Jack returning from his woodworking shop. Instead, a familiar yet unwelcome car came into view. It was Harold's, Jack's father. My heart sank a little. Jack and I lived in a cozy 2-bedroom house on the outskirts of town. It was our refuge, a place where I could unleash my creativity as a freelance graphic designer and where Jack could rest after long days at his workshop. We had furnished it with love, each piece telling a story of our shared life. The car door opened, and out stepped Harold, followed by Jack's younger brother, Liam. My brows furrowed in confusion. They weren't just visiting, they were unloading bags and boxes. I rushed to the door, my mind racing with questions. "Harold, Liam, what's all this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Harold, a man in his late 50s with a brash demeanor, grinned at me. "Ellie, surprise, we're moving in. Liam lost his job, and we thought this would be the perfect place to crash for a while." My heart pounded in my ears. Moving in? Jack didn't mention anything. Liam, avoiding eye contact, carried a box past me into the house. He was always the quieter one, but his silence now felt more like complicity. Harold clapped his hands together. "Don't worry about it. We won't be a bother. Just going to stay in the spare room. Oh, and we're a bit tight on cash, so don't expect rent or any help with the chores." I stood there, dumbfounded. This had to be a joke. "You can't be serious," I said, a mix of disbelief and anger brewing inside me. Harold shrugged, his attitude casual to the point of disrespect. "Family helps family, Ellie. That's how it works." The sound of the front door opening drew my attention. Jack walked in, his face etched with surprise as he saw his brother and father. "Dad? Liam? What are you doing here?" Before I could speak, Harold interjected. "Telling your wife about our little living arrangement." Jack glanced at me, his eyes apologetic. "Ellie, I was going to talk to you about this. They needed a place to stay, and I thought—" "You thought?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "You thought it would be fine to move them in without even asking me?" Jack ran a hand through his hair, looking torn. "I know it's sudden, but they're family." I could feel the walls of our home closing in on me. This wasn't just about sharing our space. It was about our respect and autonomy being stripped away. I wanted to scream, to argue, but I caught myself. Arguing wouldn't solve this. With a deep breath, I turned to Harold and Liam. "If this is how it's going to be, then we need to set some ground rules." Harold waved his hand dismissively. "Rules? Schmools? We're family. Just relax and let things be." Jack looked at me, his expression a plea for understanding. But understanding was a two-way street, and right now, it felt like a dead end. As I retreated to our bedroom, the sounds of Harold and Liam making themselves at home echoed mockingly through the house. Lying on the bed, I stared at the ceiling, a storm of emotions brewing inside me. This was our home, our sanctuary, and it had been invaded. How were we going to navigate this? The sense of helplessness was overwhelming, but beneath it all, a determined resolve began to form. This was not the end. It was just the beginning of a battle I hadn't anticipated fighting. The next few days were a blur of unwelcome adjustments. Harold and Liam settled into our spare room as if they owned it. Their presence was like a constant, oppressive cloud hanging over our home. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Harold sauntered into the kitchen. "Smells good, Ellie. What's cooking?" "Just some spaghetti," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. Harold opened the fridge and grabbed a beer. "You know, you should really consider making something a bit more substantial. Liam and I need more than just pasta." I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to lash out. "I'll keep that in mind," I said through gritted teeth. Jack walked in, his face weary from work. "Hey, what's going on?" "Just discussing dinner," Harold said, taking a seat at the table. Jack looked at me, and I could see the silent apology in his eyes. He knew this wasn't right, yet he felt trapped by familial obligation. It was a pattern I had begun to notice, Jack's inability to stand up to his father. Later that night, I lay in bed, Jack's soft snores filling the room. I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed the events of the past few days, each incident a small cut to my peace of mind. Jack and I had always been a team, but now I felt alone in this struggle. The following day, I decided to talk to Jack. I found him in the living room, reading. "Jack, we need to talk," I began, my voice firm. He looked up, concern etched on his face. "What's wrong?" "It's about your dad and Liam. This situation isn't working. I feel like we're losing our home to them." Jack sighed, setting his book aside. "I know it's hard, Ellie, but they're family. I can't just turn them away." I sat down next to him. "But at what cost, Jack? Our happiness? Our marriage? We need to set boundaries." Jack ran his hand through his hair, a sign of his frustration. "I'll talk to them. I promise." But the talk never happened. Jack's reluctance to confront his father only led to more tension. It was as if Harold and Liam had cast a shadow over our home, turning it into a place I no longer recognized. One afternoon, I returned from a walk to find Harold and Liam lounging in the living room, the TV blaring. Empty beer cans littered the table. "Could you please clean up after yourselves?" I asked, my patience wearing thin. Liam shrugged, not even bothering to look at me. "Relax, Ellie. It's just a few cans." I felt a surge of anger. "This is not a hotel. You need to respect our home." Harold chuckled. "Oh, come on, Ellie. You're acting like the queen of the castle. We're just comfortable here." I stormed out of the room, my emotions boiling over. This wasn't just about beer cans. It was about respect, something that was clearly lacking. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized that something had to change. I couldn't live like this, walking on eggshells in my own home. I needed to take a stand, not just for the sake of our home, but for my own sanity. I turned to Jack, who was already asleep. In the moonlight, his face looked peaceful, oblivious to the turmoil inside me. I knew the conversation we needed to have wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary. Tomorrow, I decided, I would have that talk with Jack. It was time to reclaim our home, our life, and our future. The next morning, I watched Jack as he slept, his face a picture of tranquility. Today was the day I needed to confront the situation head-on. The thought made my stomach churn, but I knew it was necessary. After breakfast, I found Jack in his workshop, sanding a piece of wood with meticulous care. The scent of sawdust filled the air, a reminder of the simple pleasures we once enjoyed freely. "Jack, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. He turned off his sander and looked at me, wiping the sweat from his brow. "What's up?" "It's about your dad and Liam. I can't do this anymore. They're taking over our home and showing no respect. We need to make a change." Jack's expression softened. "Ellie, I know it's hard, but they have nowhere else to go." "But that doesn't mean they can treat us and our home like this. We need to set boundaries. Or," I hesitated, the next words heavy on my tongue, "consider asking them to leave." Jack looked pained, torn between his sense of duty and our happiness. "Ellie, they're my family. I can't just kick them out." "But what about us, Jack? What about our family? Our plans? Our life together?" The frustration and sadness in my voice were palpable. Jack was silent for a moment, his eyes reflecting a storm of emotions. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, I'll talk to them. I promise." That evening, Jack gathered us in the living room. Harold and Liam sat on the couch, their casual demeanor in stark contrast to the tension in the air. "Dad, Liam, we need to discuss living arrangements," Jack began, his voice firm. Harold raised an eyebrow. "What's there to discuss? We're family." Jack took a deep breath. "This is Ellie's home, too, and we need to respect that. There have to be rules and contributions if you're going to stay." I watched, holding my breath, as Harold's face turned into a scowl. "Rules? We're not children, Jack. And you're not guests either," I added, finding strength in my voice. "This is our home, and we need to live here as a family with respect for each other." The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Harold's gaze shifted between Jack and me, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. But the moment passed, and Harold stood up, his voice tinged with anger. "Fine. We'll find somewhere else to go. Come on, Liam." Liam followed his father, throwing a quick, apologetic glance in our direction. After they left, the house felt eerily quiet, like the calm after a storm. Jack and I sat in silence, the reality of what had just happened slowly sinking in. "I'm sorry, Ellie," Jack finally said. "I should have done this sooner." I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "It's okay. We did what we had to do. For us." The following days were a mix of relief and apprehension. Harold and Liam had left, but the echoes of their presence lingered. Jack and I started to rebuild our routine, finding comfort in the small moments we shared. But the true test came when Harold called a week later. His voice was softer, almost humbled. "Ellie, Jack, we found a place. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. We didn't realize how much we were imposing." I exchanged a glance with Jack, a silent communication passing between us. "Thank you, Harold. We appreciate that." As we ended the call, I felt a sense of closure. It wasn't just about reclaiming our home. It was about setting boundaries and standing up for what was right. That night, as Jack and I sat on our porch, watching the sunset, I felt a deep sense of peace. We had weathered a storm together and come out stronger. Our home was once again our sanctuary, a place of love, respect, and understanding. In the weeks following Harold and Liam's departure, Jack and I slowly rediscovered the rhythm of our life together. The house felt larger, quieter, and imbued with a newfound sense of peace. Yet the echoes of the recent upheaval lingered, a reminder of the fragile balance within family relationships. One evening, as I was finalizing a design project, my phone buzzed with an unexpected call. It was Rachel, a friend and real estate lawyer I had confided in about our situation. "Ellie, I've found something you should know about." Rachel's voice was serious, tinged with concern. "It's about Harold's house, the one he sold before moving in with you." Curiosity piqued. I urged her to continue. "According to the records, there are discrepancies in the sale. It looks like Harold might not have reported it properly. There could be legal and financial implications." My mind raced with the implications of Rachel's discovery. If Harold had been negligent or deceitful in his dealings, it could spell trouble not just for him, but potentially for us too. I shared the news with Jack, who listened with a furrowed brow. "I can't believe Dad would be so careless. We need to sort this out, Ellie." The next day, we invited Harold and Liam over to discuss the matter. The atmosphere was tense, a stark contrast to their previous uninvited presence in our home. "Harold, there's an issue with the sale of your house," Jack started, his tone serious. "There might be legal consequences if it's not resolved." Harold's face, usually so full of bluster, fell. "What? I didn't know. I thought once it was sold, that was it." "It's not just about selling the house, Harold. There are procedures, taxes, and declarations to handle," I added, echoing Rachel's words. Liam, who had been silent, spoke up. "Dad, did you even check with a lawyer or a real estate agent properly?" Harold shook his head, a mix of confusion and regret in his eyes. "I just wanted to get it done quickly. I didn't think it would be a problem." Jack and I exchanged a glance. The revelation shed new light on Harold's and Liam's hasty move into our home. It wasn't just about needing a place to stay. It was an escape from a problem Harold didn't know how to handle. "We'll help you sort it out, but you need to be transparent with us," Jack said, a firm resolve in his voice. Harold nodded, a sense of humility replacing his usual arrogance. "Thank you. I appreciate it." In the following weeks, we worked with Rachel to untangle the legal web Harold had unwittingly woven. It was a process fraught with frustration and learning, as Harold grappled with the consequences of his actions. Through this ordeal, a change occurred in Harold. The brash, overbearing father-in-law who had barged into our lives was now a man facing the reality of his mistakes. Liam, too, seemed to grow, taking a more active role in helping his father. As for Jack and me, the experience brought us closer. We navigated the complexities together, our relationship strengthened by the challenges we overcame. One evening, as we sat in our living room, the space that had once been invaded by unwelcome guests, Jack put his arm around me. "Ellie, we've been through a lot," he said softly, "but I'm grateful for it. It's shown us what we can handle together." I leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his embrace. "Yes, we have, and we've come out stronger for it." The trials we faced with Harold and Liam were more than just about setting boundaries in our home. They were lessons in understanding, patience, and the complexities of family. Our home had once again become a haven, a testament to our resilience and love. The resolution of Harold's legal issues marked a turning point for all of us. In the wake of the upheaval, Jack and I found ourselves at a crossroads. The events of the past months had left their mark, urging us to reevaluate our priorities and dreams. One crisp morning, as we shared coffee on our porch, Jack broached the subject that had been lingering in both our minds. "Ellie, do you ever think about starting fresh somewhere else?" somewhere far from all these memories. I looked out at the garden, where the first signs of spring were beginning to show. I have, actually. It feels like we could use a new beginning. Jack's eyes lit up with a mixture of excitement and relief. I was thinking, what about Italy? We always talked about going there someday. Italy, the mere mention of it, sparked a sense of adventure in my heart. We had often dreamt of the rolling hills of Tuscany, the historic streets of Rome, the serene canals of Venice. The idea of turning that dream into reality was both thrilling and daunting. Let's do it, I said, the decision feeling right in my bones. Let's make that dream a reality. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. We dealt with the logistics of moving abroad, from sorting out visas to finding a place to live. We sold our house, a decision that was bittersweet but necessary for our new beginning. Our farewell to Harold and Liam was unexpectedly emotional. Harold, now a changed man from the ordeal, expressed his gratitude and regret. I'm sorry for all the trouble I caused. You both deserve this fresh start. Liam, who had found a new job and was starting to get his life on track, echoed his father's sentiments. Take care of each other and enjoy Italy. As our plane soared above the clouds, leaving our old life behind, I felt a sense of liberation. The troubles of the past were drifting away, making room for new experiences, new challenges, and new joys. Italy welcomed us with open arms. The beauty of the country, the warmth of the people, and the richness of the culture were invigorating. We settled in a quaint town in Tuscany, surrounded by vineyards and olive groves. Jack found work restoring antique furniture, a passion he had always harbored, and I continued my graphic design work, now inspired by the scenic beauty around us. One evening, as we sat in a small local trattoria, savoring a meal of homemade pasta and fine wine, I looked at Jack and realized how far we had come. The struggles with Harold and Liam had not only tested our relationship, but had also strengthened it. We had learned to stand up for ourselves, to set boundaries, and to chase our dreams. Here's to new beginnings, Jack said, raising his glass. To new beginnings, I echoed, the Italian sunset casting a warm glow over our new life. As we walked back to our new home under the starlit sky, I knew that this was just the beginning of a wonderful new chapter. Our life in Italy was filled with possibilities, and I was ready to embrace each one with an open heart. In Italy, we found more than just a new home. We found a new sense of belonging. The laughter, the love, and the simple joys of everyday life were our new treasures. And as we looked forward to starting a family, I knew that our future was bright, filled with the promise of happiness and the beauty of living our dream.